So we're going to look now at how to plan a lesson, an English speaking lesson. So I'm going to go through a lesson plan that I made for an English speaking class just in a minute, but let's quickly just review what our lesson plan template looks like. So we've got learning objectives or aims, just like you have in all of your classes. Now these are usually kept in the annual plan or curriculum, so you can find those and paste from there. And so you would also have your the resources you need for your class in the annual plan, and these can be pasted again from your annual plans into your lesson plans. You would then have your introduction, where you review the last lesson and you introduce the new lesson. And then, of course, the body of the lesson, where you would have an I do, where you introduce new materials. That's teacher's instruction, followed by a we do, where the whole class practices together, and a you do element, where the students would have the time to do their own independent practice. So we're going to look at a lesson plan I've created now. So if we go back into our Couple of Valleys school folder, into our English folder, and back to curriculum. Okay, so the lesson I've created is for class 3. Here it is, so the example lesson. And this example lesson plan will also be uploaded into the training material so that you can have a look. And I'm also going to open the annual plan. Great. So the lesson I created was for Unit 2, People Around Us. As I said a little earlier on, the learning objectives and aim of the lesson and the resources used are exactly the same as those found in the annual plan. I'll just quickly go through so you can see all of the sections. So we've got resources that you'll need for the lesson, the introduction, which shouldn't be more than about 5 or so minutes, the main body of the lesson, which includes the I do, we do, and you do, and any assessment that you do in the lesson. But below, I've also included some teaching resources that will be important to the lesson. So here, for example, you've got a verb table. Now you might decide that this is something you can have on the whiteboard and students can replicate or copy down in their copy or notebooks. Could also be a handout if you wanted to print off and have for each individual group. Below, this is going to be one of the student activities. It's going to be a survey. Students are going to conduct a speaking survey. So here's the template that the students would need to copy down, and the questions and answers that they would use in their survey. There's also a video link for one of the activities, which we'll come back to in just a minute. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at the learning objectives and aim of the lesson. So the students will be using the verb to be in the present tense. They'll also be saying sentences about the occupations of people in their community and asking and answering questions about the professions of their family members. So the resources should be linked to every activity that you need. So the first two are actually resources that I haven't included here. But what I would recommend for your speaking classes is to have set groups. And this will take a little bit of planning and getting to know your students and working out which students work well together and which students will help to which groups will work well together to develop their speaking skills. So that's about knowing your students, and maybe you won't know in the first 2 or 3 weeks. And of course, you can always change your groups as the year progresses. Another really useful resource is a reward chart, which you can put on the wall or on a notice board in your classroom. And this is a good way to encourage both individuals and groups to improve their speaking skills. Gives them a little incentive. Maybe they get a prize at the end of the semester or term, or maybe at the end of the academic year. If you're interested in in a reward chart, there is one in the Kapila Valley School resources folder, which I'll share a link to in the PowerPoint. So students for this lesson would also need their copy, mini whiteboards, one per group, whiteboard markers, again, one for each group, board rubbers, one for each group, and the survey template at the bottom. Again, this is something that you might decide is easier doing as a handout to save time, or it could be something that students have on the whiteboard that they copy down. So let's move into the introduction. And as I said, it should be quite short and sweet. We won't talk about the first two. So obviously review of the previous lesson and checking any homework. But as this lesson is using the verb to be, so a good way to start the lesson would be to point at different objects in the classroom. Could be a chair, could be a table, could be a notebook, could be a bag. And you want to ask students, what is this? So that they're giving you a sentence using the verb to be. So instead of a student saying in response to the question, what is this? Simply notebook or chair or table, you want a student using the full sentence. So saying, it is a book, or this is a book, or this is a whiteboard. Okay, and then so you're moving into the body of the lesson, you'll want to have an I do section where you're teaching the new materials to the students. And so at this point, I'm going to look at our speaking class resources. So for class 3 in People Around Us, there's quite a few different resources. I haven't used all of them, but of course you can adapt your lessons as you like and use any resources that you think are useful. And so one of the resources I had I found very useful is this English Club webpage, which has lots of different resources, but the one we'll be looking at today is just the verb table using the verb to be. So if we scroll down, we're going to find the table that we need, which is simple past, present, and future tense. So all we're using at this stage for this level is present tense. And this is not the most complex verb, it's just an illustration of how you can use verb tables in your lessons using the resources, the speaking class resources. So all we'll really need is this section here, the present tense of to be in singular and plural form. So I use that as the basis for the verb table here at the bottom, which you're going to use in this lesson. Okay, and so you want to check if students know any personal pronouns. They probably won't know it by that term, but most or some will know what personal pronouns are. And a good way of introducing it is introducing yourself, saying I am, and asking students to repeat, but saying their own name. So you can ask 1 or 2 students to do the same. And then you want to do the same with you, he, she, it, and they. So you are Praveen, you are Rekha, he is Ganesh, she is Manuka, it is a table, it is a pencil, and they are class 4. So just illustrating how you use personal pronouns in different contexts. And you then want to write the verb table or hand it out if you've printed it before. And then we move on to the guided practice, the we do section. So you want to ask students to verbally fill in the blanks. So, for example, I am, and the student would finish it off. You are, the student would finish it off. It could be Krishna or Rajani. It is a desk. So at this point, you want to make sure that students know it is used for objects and not people. That can be a common mistake, and one to point out early so students don't make it.